invested a lot in technology. Most of my team had been with me for most of those years, so they knew a lot. They'd grown up in the business like I had, and I learned a lot. I had a good, there's a lot of talk about Martin and his team being a good investor. He gave some really good advice about if you're going to take money, get the right sort of partner, and that was really important. I had supportive private equity in my company, so these guys would bring resources they have. And somebody asked Keisha the question about how is it that you develop your leadership. Well, I mean, you can count on the money to do that. They have their money in your business. If they're the right partner, they want to protect that. And so if there's need, you can reach out to them and ask. They have what they call different private equity firms or funds call them different, but they're partners really that help in the different disciplines in business. They help the leadership to do what they need to do. So we did that. We leaned heavily on Frontier to help us with the development of our leadership team. So it was we learned a lot though. I mean, to go from the number of people we had to where we ultimately, by the time we sold the company, we were over 4,000 people that were working there. Yeah. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am. Oh, I thought you were answering the question.
Call centers. So from a software standpoint, is that just verification software or background, or do you actually sell your software to corporations?
It's the former of what you said. It's doing background screens and contractor vetting. So basically now what we do today is for those companies that have a large contingent workforce or have a large contractor community, we vet those employees and those companies for the companies that they're doing business with. And then for companies that are hiring individuals, we do the background screens for those folks as well. And what we've done is tried to, given the fact that we've had such customer interest from our experience in call centers, integrated that into what we do as well. So that's a separate service that we're now offering. Yeah. One thing I will say too is in this business, very different than the first, in that the first is very people intensive. I mentioned almost 4,000 people. In this, we have 75 people. But it's amazing how the tenets around culture and doing simple things and making sure people understand what your mission is as a business is as important in a 75-person company as it is in a 4,000-person company. In fact, I think I spend more time in the smaller company than I did in the bigger company on issues around people. It's kind of crazy. Right.
So can you talk a little bit about the difference in the terms that you got as a first-time entrepreneur versus the term sheet?
Really
what the term sheet looked like for your second?
Yeah, so you're talking about PhDs. So I'm much smarter raising the money the second time and what I needed to talk about and think about and be prepared for than in the first time. The first time I didn't know, I knew this vulture capitalist, and I knew I didn't want these folks, coming in and taking my company. I'd already worked for somebody. I didn't want to work for somebody else again. But I didn't really know about preference and I had no idea about that. And so I relied a lot on outside help. But this next time I knew a lot more about it. And so, while I put my own money in, there is, a part of the equity that's in this last deal that's reserved for me because I'm leading the effort. I'm actually working every day. And so I was smarter about how to negotiate that. Even the decision, like in the second business, we did bring some debt in alongside of the equity that we raised. And so, smarter about how much debt and, how much we pay for that debt. It's just the message here is we don't have to learn by hard knocks. This information is out there. If you're a person that's, really looking to grow your business, and I would tell you not to be afraid. I kind of heard in the messaging here with the last company. I'm sorry, I forgot the name. Global Innovations. And I kind of heard underlying, I don't know if we want to take private equity, and there was a growth in the company to get to a point where you get comfortable with that. That's natural if you own a business, that you don't want someone, to come in and take over your business. But I will tell you, do not be afraid of it. It is the way to scale. You need money. Cash is king. It's hard to get it done at a high level without money, without cash. I would just encourage you to study. There's information that's out there that you can arm yourself with so that you can be intelligent in the process. I wasn't as much. I think I was lucky. I had a good partner, honest folks, and I had some outside folks that could help me. And so it worked out really good. The exit was good for me, and I was able to make an informed decision about this next venture, in which we haven't gotten close to where I think we're going to wind up in terms of an exit. It'll likely be bigger than the first, that's saying something for me anyway. From Northwest Arkansas, and that. Yeah, it's another good question, another good point, Rod. In the first, we sold to a strategic, but we sold to a strategic that we're a minority-owned company, and so someone asked the question earlier about, how do you raise money and maintain, your control of the business, and to maintain control means whether or not you're certified. We were successfully able to do that. So the NMSDC now has something called the Growth Initiative, and what the Growth Initiative will allow you to do is to raise outside capital and still have control of your business, because of the rules that they've set up around that. So again, it's about you being a student and understanding what's available to you. We're a minority-owned firm today, and I only have a third actual equity ownership in the business. It's about being a good student and learning, what's available to you. Yeah. Yeah, so the question was about whether or not would I give advice about going the corporate route or going straight into being an entrepreneur. I mean, I think every situation is different. It was beneficial for me to get the foundation that I got at DMB. I learned a lot there, and it helped me. Can you, if you got the right passion, you've done the right things in terms of aligning yourself with the right people, studying and understanding what's all involved with starting a business, can you be successful that way? I think so. But there's no shortcuts. I think the entrepreneurs who don't get the corporate experience, I think the benefit to the corporate experience is that it gives you some discipline and some framework about how business is actually done. So I think that's the benefit there. But and I think the downfall for those entrepreneurs who don't have that is that there's shortcuts that are taken. Getting business plan from dummies out of, and trying to make that work in terms of raising money. You can't do those things. There aren't any shortcuts. If you're going to go and not get that background and experience, then I think you really got to arm yourself with a lot of information, and you got to be a really good student. More questions? Thank you, guys.
That was awesome. So this is a great time to recognize a very special Cincinnatian who will introduce our next speaker. Like our final speaker, Ed Rigaud is also a great example of a successful corporate executive turned entrepreneur. In addition to all the work that Ed does behind the scenes to make it easier for minority entrepreneurs to thrive, including me, across the region, Ed is the president and CEO of Innova Premier LLC, an automotive product supply and services company. He is also co-director of Taft Business Consulting LLC. Prior to pursuing his entrepreneurial pursuits, Ed retired from Procter & Gamble in 2001 after 36 years of service. And among the many things that Ed does, he's actually responsible for this building being here right now. So without further ado, Mr. Ed Rigaud.
Mark, that was great. That was really, really inspiring. I don't know this gentleman that I'm introducing. I may have run into him at some point when I was calling on McDonald's when I was at Procter & Gamble, because he was pretty potent at Procter & Gamble. But I feel like I know Michael Thompson because his profile is almost like mine. So let me just read a few things about him. Michael is the president and CEO of Fair Oaks Farms. It's a meat and poultry products company. And Michael says, "I'm fiercely proud of our company and our team. We work hard at delivering more than our customers expect. When you strive for excellence every day in everything you do, it shows." So Mike is extremely proud of his company, and I think he got his training at McDonald's, just as I got mine at Procter & Gamble. The difference is, Mike, you only spent 20 years at McDonald's. I spent 36 at P&G. I really screwed up. So you're out of the big company, big corporation, but while you were there, you were a regional manager, vice president in the San Francisco region. You successfully led the company with top 10 performances in sales and income increases. And as vice president of North America Supply Chain Management, you spearheaded several achievements that anyone would be proud of in integrated logistics and some other areas. So he considers Fair Oaks to be the gold standard or target supplier for many of his customers, which include the Department of Commerce and his own previous company, McDonald's. So I've taken a little advantage of that too in some of my entrepreneurial interests and sold a few things to Procter & Gamble. That's something you should consider whenever you're coming out of a large corporation. So Mike's company has been top innovation supplier of the year. They've received many, many awards. Mike himself has received the Shining Light Award for his persistence and determination through sharing and caring in both the spirit of Dr. Martin Luther King and Ray Kroc, who founded McDonald's. Mike has been one of the country's top 50 private sector leaders to participate in President Obama's White House Forum on Modernizing Government. He received his bachelor's degree in business management and economics from Cornell. He attended the leadership programs at Harvard Business School and at Tuck School at Dartmouth. So with no further ado, he's sitting all the way in the back there, Michael Thompson.
Okay, a little microphone adjustment, huh? Can you all hear me okay? Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Well, I'll tell you one thing, you all better start smiling a lot, or I'm going to have Mark take you down to HR and straighten you out a little bit. So what a great lineup of speakers today, just a fantastic group. Rod, thank you very much for inviting me here, and you know, it's just we're in just a tremendous building as well, so this was really fantastic. I've got I don't know, a few comments for you today, and then we'll open it up for questions. Just want to check, my friend on the back, you got my clicker going? Okay, great. So Fair Oaks Farms is the largest African-American food manufacturing company in the U.S. And I've checked around, I can say even in the world, I can't find another company, food manufacturer, that's larger than us. And, you know, while that's fantastic, but it is always fascinating to me. Every time I come to these events, I always learn about companies that I've never heard of. And I'm sure you've never heard about Fair Oaks either. And I just look at that as a sign to say, you know, we as diversity folks, I mean, we can do anything we put our minds to it. All of the great stories you heard today, they were all inspirational. And there's none better than others. It's just the matter of getting out there, stepping out there, and trying something that you really haven't tried before, which is basically my story. There was an earlier comment by Vincent and Janet that I just want to reiterate. I would not be here today without acknowledging God's blessings in my life. So without that, the trials I've been through, all of that, you know, it always leads somewhere. And those trials have led me to Fair Oaks here. And today is not, you know, about exactly all of the points I did to the mechanics of how I built the business. I will get into that. But what I really want to connect with you on is about leveraging your talents, leveraging your relationships, all of the different things that you all experience in your lives over a period of time. They all equal up to where you can possibly go. So Fair Oaks did sales of over $300 million in 2013, and then we were recognized as the number 13 in the Black Enterprise 100 top largest minority businesses. And that's after being recognized with $227 million that we did in sales in 2012. So we grew by $70 million last year. This year, we're on track to do about 340, maybe 350 million. So I'm hoping I'm going to get bumped up a little bit in the Black Enterprise rankings. So maybe I'll be, you know, the funny thing in the Black Enterprise rankings, they have Oprah Winfrey's company in there, and she's listed as like number 12, and I'm like, you know, that's no way, right? I mean, she's doing mega business, so why is she in there at number 12? So maybe I'll get up there a little bit higher than 13, but get in front of Oprah, but not really, right? Fair Oaks is an LLC. I'm the majority owner of the company, and I bought the majority interest of the company in 2003. The company was doing approximately $60 to $80 million. It was an existing McDonald's business doing breakfast sausage, but McDonald's was the only customer at the time. And, you know, that's a great revenue for any company. But as I mentioned, you know, we've been blessed to grow over $200 million in the last 10 years, and that was all organic grassroots growth, just that I got out there and grew the company because I had to. It was not in very good shape. Here we have our East facility, and this is our McDonald's facility, so we do nothing here but McDonald's products. We make over 2 million sausage patties a day out of that plant. And then I have this is my West facility. This facility manufactures everything else we do besides McDonald's. And as I grew the business and grew the company, I went from running one shift in the other building, which is, if you're into manufacturing, you know that's absolutely terrible. One shift and one sanitation shift, that was it, to being able to buy and grow this company and fill it. So we have about 300 employees overall, and we provide many breakfast and lunch, dinner, occasion meats. These products some of them are fully cooked, partially cooked, some are raw. And we do different proteins such as everything from beef, chicken, turkey, pork, make up the majority of our offerings overall. The last picture here shown is a McDonald's sausage, egg and biscuit sandwich. So, hope somebody's getting hungry. And I'd really like you all to do me a favor to help grow the business. Go to McDonald's tomorrow morning for breakfast, and I would really appreciate that. McDonald's is our largest customer, and we serve breakfast sausage to over 33% of their 14,000 restaurants. They have 14,000 restaurants in the U.S., and we do 33% of all the business. And we serve bacon as another product that we do, and we serve 75% of those 14,000 restaurants in the U.S. We are also in a Walmart, and we're in nearly all of 100% of their supercenters in the U.S., and we supply them with 5 different types of items, breakfast sausage, but different types of flavors such as maple, spicy, original. We do turkey, we do chicken, we do beef, we do meatballs, we do links. I didn't do any of those products when I got into this business, none, zero. It was really only the McDonald's breakfast sausage product. And we're looking at having several other products that we're going to do with them as well. And I've talked to Walmart about doing some of their international markets as well. Other customers to note that we have are Aldi Foods, the Olive Garden, Papa John's Pizzas, Panera Bread, Boston Market, Denny's, and many, many more. But this is just kind of a subset of our customer base. So our footprint in the U.S. really looks like this. The blue circles represents distribution centers for all of our customers. And this represents over 25,000 individual locations that are serving our food products. And to me, that's just a tremendous blessing for me and for our employees. And I show this map, for the people that work in the company, because people come to work every day in the company and they're like, well, what do we do? Well, we make food products. Yeah, we make it for McDonald's. Yeah, we make it for other folks. But when you look at the map, so I have a map like this in one of our conference rooms. I actually have the people come by, and you'd be surprised. People will bring their families by. I mean, they bring little kids and say, hey, what mom and dad are doing, we're serving products all over the world, all over the country. So it's a pretty impressive thing, I think, overall. In international markets, we serve McDonald's in over 1,400 restaurants in Canada and over 3,000 restaurants in Japan. So what do we serve in these countries? Kind of breakfast sausage with a teriyaki twist, really, really good. And then in Canada, you'd be surprised worldwide how the flavor profiles change. In Canada, as you go further north, there's a lot of sage. People want sage flavor. I don't know why, they just do. And so it tastes different in different places. But in Japan, it's got a teriyaki kick, and it's very, very good. So overall, my impact that I want to make as a company is I want to have more impact on this map. I mean, China, for example, has 1.3 billion people, and if you look at it, it's a great place for growth right now, I believe. They have a weak infrastructure, and I only mean that on the food side because I can produce these types of products here, cook them, freeze them, ship them over 3 weeks frozen in containers, and do it cheaper than they can do in their own country. That's what you call a weak infrastructure. It's not always going to be there, though. As they grow, and they're throwing a lot of money, hear about these cities and roads and everything that's being built, pretty soon that infrastructure is going to get very strong, and companies in the West like we are, we're just not going to be able to compete. But until then, we're going to do it because they consume huge amounts of protein. And believe it or not, what do you think the number one protein is in China? Somebody said fish. It's pork. It really is. It's pork. It's pork, beef, chicken, and fish. I know. Google it. Check it out. Going back to the U.S., there's a lot of growth in the U.S., I believe. And as a matter of fact, I just returned from a visit to a very large coffee company, tall cups with a green label, on the West Coast because they have been considering more and more breakfast items. So you've got to go right where the business is lending and trending, and that's one of the trends overall. By way of background for me, I am and still am a skinny kid from the south side of Chicago. These are my parents, Bessie and Arthur Thompson. And I had to give them honor being in this building because, as many of you, they are products of the great black migration. I mean, my father was born in Meridian, Mississippi. His mother came up, cleaned houses, left him actually in the care of his sisters, and they actually abandoned him. So he was on his own at 13 years old for 6 months in Meridian, Mississippi, and actually found some Catholic nuns that took care of him. That's kind of another story. And my mother, and you all won't know this, but but she was born in a place called Cuba, Alabama. And Cuba is between Birmingham and the Mississippi line if you're going like toward Jackson. And her story was really unique as well. As you could tell, she's more on the fair-skinned side. So, you know what that means. That was a relationship that she's got 13 brothers and sisters, and they are all very dark-skinned. So she's the only one that stood out, and she really, be very honest with you, was just ostracized and, basically almost ran out of town because of her being so light-skinned and not being able to live in that environment. So, as I said, being here in this building, I think it's important, to give them honor. I lost my dad about 3 months ago as well, so I anytime I can, I give them a shout out. So, product of 5 boys, 1 girl. I was third in line. And, basically childhood was great except for growing up in one of the most segregated cities in America, which is Chicago. So, but overall, again, leveraging all of the things you go through in life to get to where you are today, this was a good one. Now, Ed basically gave kind of all my stuff here and my background, but yes, I did play basketball, although nobody has asked me yet today how tall I am. So I'll just go ahead and answer it. I'm 6'9". And my Cornell story was kind of an interesting one because I got recruited pretty heavily throughout, the country. Matter of fact, so the Spurs won, yay. Okay, so Tony Parker, who is a guard there, his father and I played basketball together in high school. His father was our lead scorer and our point guard and was just dynamite. And every time I see him, he always talks about he taught Tony everything he knew. And I got to listen to that for a half hour. But just, it's just funny how things happen in life overall. Cornell, business management degree with economics. The one thing I just want to mention about sports, and, we got a lot of entrepreneurs in here, sports really taught me how to work with people that aren't like me. And isn't that what you do as entrepreneurs? You work with people, you teach people, you train people that aren't like you. So for those of you that want to know, am I cut out to be an entrepreneur? Got to ask yourself that question. Can you work with people that aren't like you? Can you teach and train? Career-wise, my first job out of college actually was at Aldi Foods. This was a brand new company out of Germany who had this private label vision. And they said, we're going to come into the U.S. They bought up a small company, a small chain of grocery stores called Giant Foods, and they began to grow and change these stores over. They came to Cornell to recruit because Cornell had a great reputation for business management students. That's what I was in, right? So I got a great job. I mean, it was like I got the highest paid job coming out of college of anyone in my senior year. Now, this is a long time ago, but it was a whopping $17,500. And I tell you a funny story. So I interviewed with the president, and I had to drop him off at the airport. So I'm with the president of the car. You know, I'm a senior, right? So I got on my one business suit that I had that my mother sent me from Chicago. So I'm driving to the airport in his rental car, and he says, okay, drop me off at the airport, and then would you take the car over to the rental car? I said, yeah. Well, in Ithaca, New York, you know, it snowed about, 5 feet every other day, right? So I dropped him off at the airport. I had to make this U-turn. He went in, got his ticket. This is a small airport. I'm sure he was on the plane within 15 minutes. I'm waiting there. I get in the car. I make a U-turn trying to go to the rental car center because I realized I missed a turn. And because the snow was so deep, the car fell off in the ditch. So the car is sideways. I have to open the door this way to get out. I am climbing out, and I see this guy's plane take off. And all I could think of is he just hired me. I got this big job, and he's going to go, what idiot did I hire? I mean, he can't even take the car back to the rental place. So anyway, long story short, worked at Aldi for almost 8 years. Did a lot of operations there, but also got into supply chain management. That's when I started my supply chain management career. My admin was actually, her husband was a buyer at McDonald's, said they needed some more people. One thing led to another. I wind up at McDonald's. 20 years in McDonald's, 10 years in supply chain management, looking at working with McDonald's biggest and best suppliers, biggest and best companies. And these companies were amazing, and almost all of them were privately held, almost all of them. So I got to look and learn and see these companies because my first job in McDonald's was I was hired as the beef buyer. Could you imagine that? Buying all the beef, hamburger, meat for McDonald's nationally. So I did that. I mean, that was my entrance into McDonald's. So I learned a lot about just supply chain in general. I made a leap after about 10 years because I recognized, supply chain in companies only goes so far. If you really want to get where the action is, if you really want to grow, if you really want to, boost your career, you got to get into operations. But to get into operations, you have to move. So the first place we moved to from Chicago was Detroit. Now, I was trying to convince my wife of that, who is also a Cornell grad and an MBA from Kellogg. Okay, honey, we're going to pick up, you got to quit your job, and we're moving to Detroit. So in any case, but we did. And those are just some of the things you work through when you're trying to grow, right? So as a young couple, we did that. We grew. We went to Detroit. It was great, one of the best places I ever lived. But over those 10 years, what happened was, over the 20 years, in supply chain, I got a very good reputation for integrity, for honesty, for business acumen. The supply community really liked what they saw when they worked with me. When I was asked to go to San Francisco to head up their store operations, and the company stores are called McCopcos. So I had about 100 McCopcos. I had about 500 McDonald's, 110 franchisees, 500 restaurants. And supply chain was having a real tough time, and they actually asked me to come back and head it up. I got back to Chicago, and within 2-3 years, this company, which is my minority partner right now, asked me if I wanted to step in and buy the majority interest of Fair Oaks. And Fair Oaks was opened under another name and another partner, but that partner was no longer there. So they asked me to come and be interested, which I did. I've got to just give a shout out to McDonald's overall. This is a company really that in 1984, just because of their own tenacity to want to do the right thing and their own desire, to want to help grow diversity businesses, they made a strategic decision in the company. They grew their franchisees, they grew company employees, and they grew diversity suppliers. And that was what they wanted to do. So there were, on the diversity supplier side, there were about six suppliers that were born out of that. There was a company that supplied the croutons for the salads that they were just coming out. Because remember, McDonald's didn't really do salads for a long time. So they came out with, this company came out and said, we're going to provide croutons. So they did other things, but that company existed. They had a gentleman, actually still in Ohio today. The company is called Warren Anderson. Anderson has two distribution companies that he owns right now. Each of the distribution centers do over $150 to $200 million apiece. So these were just the kind of things that McDonald's was really on top of all the way back in 1984. I mean, think of the business environment back then. You know, it wasn't popular to do and talk about diversity. I mean, if you got anywhere with diversity, it was because, you know, Jesse was out front, you know, with some signs, right, and got some people, and they forced companies into doing some things. You know, McDonald's was not like that. So every time I get a chance to speak, I always give them a shout out because they deserve it for what they've done overall. This is just, you know, if you look at the impact that one company had on face of diversity business, it's McDonald's. I mean, they right now are doing about 12% of all of their business with really African American suppliers. And I know that because I head up a council of African American suppliers for McDonald's, and we look at the numbers and keep track of it. You think of a company like Walmart. There's other companies out there. You know, I was glad to hear the stories earlier. I think it was about Goldman Sachs or other companies that also looked like they paid attention to and thought it was strategically smart to begin to do business with more diversity companies, because it is strategically smart. It is a strategic advantage. When things get tough, nobody talks diversity, right? But when times are good, and those are the times that you take advantage of in building your business, this is the time to do it. So how did I build a business? Really, one customer at a time. When I bought the company in 2003, as I mentioned, we had a 4-day operation, one shift. And my first objective was, I said, you know what, we got to get into larger companies that can take advantage of my runs. When we start building our business and we run that business, we just run. I mean, we don't stop for nothing. So who can take those kind of volumes? Well, myself and another company, we kind of started a private label offering for Walmart. That grew to Aldi. And each of these companies took me, Walmart, that whole relationship, it took me over 2 years to develop that. It might have been even close to 3. Aldi was another year and a half. These were slow-growing, you know, situations to build business, and so for my entrepreneur friends out there, you know how long that can take. They're long, drawn-out processes, but we began to leverage it. You know, since we're doing bacon, we started doing bacon with companies like TGI Fridays, with Papa John's Pizzas. And it was just my goal to leverage the company wherever I could with the products we were doing. That was a strategic advantage for me. I didn't have a huge R&D department. I could, you know, some of the companies we do business with today, they just have entire hundreds of people doing research and development. And when you come in there, you have to have a chef that talks to their chef. You have to have people that can talk their language. And we didn't have that. We're small. So you know what? I told my QA manager, you are now QA and product development. All right, you're wearing 2 hats. And that's how we did it. And we began to grow. And you know what? We showed as good or better as any of the larger companies we were doing business with and competing with. So it really worked overall. And like I said, you know, 300 million from 60 to 80, I think that's pretty good. So I hope you're beginning to see a pattern of kind of how I took lessons and learnings that I've mentioned and turned them into bigger growth opportunities overall. You know, as a black man, I just had a burning desire to really own a multi-million-dollar business and be able to build and grow that, leverage it, maybe to sell it one day, but to leverage it. The key here is always to be able to leverage it, I think, as a few of our other speakers have mentioned this morning. Just a word or two on wealth creation. I know we're here to talk about wealth creation. Just my advice, I mean, they talked about it earlier. You've got to have a positive EBITDA story. You can't raise capital if you don't have a positive EBITDA story. It's very important. Everybody's going to have up and downs of trends in your EBITDA. We have trends all the time. Right now, today, we're dealing with this huge virus that's in the raw material of pork because it's a virus that we think it came from China. Nobody knows. But it kills baby pigs within 24 hours of their birth. So what does that mean? That means that you don't have pigs that are going to come to the market, and that means that we are short in this country 7 million pigs that didn't go to slaughter because of this virus. This is a tremendous issue. Why? Because the raw materials for me have escalated 170% since November. So if I don't have a positive EBITDA story, how do you think I'm going to deal with my line of credit? I'm paying my vendors for raw materials within 3 days. I mean, I've got good terms with my customers, but they're not 3 days. So I'm floating a lot of money. We use 55 to 60 full tractor truckloads of raw, beautiful raw pork meat and pork trimmings every week. Every week. So you think I want to mess around with that? No, I don't. I make sure we have a positive EBITDA story, even though it may be a little jagged at some point. The overall trend line is up, which is my point to you guys today, this afternoon. Just a word on bank covenants. Easier said than done, but bank covenants are negotiable. I mean, I guess my message to you is when you're sitting down with your banks, make sure you're talking openly and honestly in terms of what your needs are. Don't cut yourself short. Don't think you can't negotiate better covenants. You can. And there's a lot of money out there to be lent right now. So if you have a great track record, bank covenants are going to help you quite a bit. And then I guess the last one would be just debt, overall. Every time we had positive cash flow, I always took a little bit more and paid down my principal. I really did that. And today we are debt free. I mean, and that is a great thing. Now, don't think it wasn't hard, going home and, my wife's like, we got in this business to do what? I never see anything. We don't have, we don't have all these things that everybody else has. Like, honey, don't worry about it. It's an equity, and equity is real, right? Especially when you're talking about the value of a company. I wanted to show you all, this was an article in the Wall Street Journal about SBA loans, and the point of the article is while the SBA is lending money, but the point of their article was that African American businesses are not getting any of it. And I thought, what's the matter with that picture? They cite several reasons why, but I'm here to tell you that I think we need to really expand relationships with banks. Banking relationships and networks are so key. And everyone out there knows this is just an environment where I think it's beginning to loosen up a little bit in terms of what they're looking for. Okay, so it's a great time to talk to some banks that you haven't talked to before. Let them know what you're doing. Let them know your passion, as we've seen by all the speakers up here today. I mean, the passion will come through, and the passion will lend to you, I believe, getting money. Growth strategies, don't be humble about your growth strategies. I mean, when I talk to my bank, and I have two right now, but I have a relationship with about 8. And the others are always talking, hey, Mike, how you doing? Hey, is there anything we can do? How's that line of credit? How about new equipment? You know, new equipment for me to put in new equipment, I don't even buy a piece of equipment that's under $400,000. I mean, everything is super expensive. So I've learned to leverage that. I think kind of like Mark was talking about, over time, you know, you just get smarter in terms of how you do it. So you don't need to hold everything with one bank if you don't have to. Recently, I made the cover of Black Enterprise magazine. This was sort of work that was done with Walmart and the Shining Light Award, I think Ed mentioned with McDonald's. You know, these things, when you talk about your passion and being proud for being in business, these are the kind of things that I live for. I mean, it's just important to be recognized. I went in the business for first 5 years of the business. I didn't even put my numbers in with Black Enterprise. I just didn't. I was like, I don't know why I'm doing that. What am I going to get out of it? You know, somebody going to call me and ask me for some money. You know, I was like, but then I said, you know what? We need to celebrate ourselves. We need to celebrate. We need to talk about what we're doing, and let people know that there are companies out here like ConnXus or the other companies that were mentioned today, because we should be inspiration for each other and for other newer people that want to join and be entrepreneurs. So the last thing I want to leave you with really today is this is my favorite quote by Robert Allen, and it says, everything you want in life is just outside your comfort zone. And when I heard that, I was like, man, that's me. That's got me written all over it, because I don't care if it's leaping from supply chain to operations in McDonald's, if it's going from McDonald's to being an entrepreneur, if it's going from 1 plant to 2 plant. I mean, the comments today about growing with your people and then people that can't grow with you as a result of you continuing to grow, I mean, that's real. And you got to make some hard decisions and some hard choices, but you have to do it. I mean, you have to do that in order to move forward. I think this is just appropriate in the world of entrepreneurship. You know, I'm always asking myself, what's next? You know, I always want to know what's next for me. I don't know what that is right now, but I'm on a growth trend, and we're in a growth mindset. Nobody talked really about children in the business, but I have my oldest son, who's 35 years old, is my assistant vice president of sales and marketing. He handles all of our major accounts. He's down there dealing with Walmart with the pigs and everything else, and he's doing a wonderful job. But I only let my kids come in the business, and I have 3, if they have something to bring to the business. This isn't no automatic. You know, when I was at McDonald's, I spent many, many years as a regional manager, vice president, and my job was to award franchisees in that area. And I couldn't tell you how many franchisees came to me and said, hey, Mike, my son Tim has been on fries since he was 12 years old. He's ready for the business. He's ready to take over the business, and now he's 21 years old. And I'd have to look at the guy and I go, Tim's not ready for the business, and I'm not going to make him a franchisee. I can't do it. It's not in your best interest, and it's not in the company's best interest. So, and I can't tell you how many owner-operators I've had that conversation with, but I also can tell you 5, 6, 7 years later, because I keep in touch with all of them, they have come back and said, Mike, you were right. You were right. You know, Tim went to law school. Tim came back. Now Tim is the lawyer for our company, and we have 10 franchisees. So that is just a great story and testament to what I would tell you. You know, having children, putting them in your business at the right time means. So I have a daughter who is the #1 salesperson for fine wines in the Chicago area. She works for a big distributor there. She's 29, and she's almost getting ready. She was like number 3, and I told her when she gets to #1, then she can come join me. So with that, I really appreciate the time here, and Rod, thank you for inviting me. And if you got time for questions, I'll be glad to answer any. Yes, sir.
Thank you. I'm Byron McCauley. I just started my own business recently, and one of the things that you sort of think about, it's kind of lonely sometimes. So, what are the three things you do when you get up?
Oh man. Well, for me, first thing I do is I thank God for being alive and awake, and I thank Him for gifting me with whatever it is I need that day, that I'm going to need that day. I'm a reader, so I like to read. So I get the newspapers and I read the newspapers. And probably the third thing is, I want to make sure I've got my act together. I mean, this is just me as a person, but especially as an entrepreneur, you got to know what's coming down the road at you that day, because you're going to get hit with a lot of stuff that you don't know about. So if you don't have your act together on what's supposed to happen in the right order, then I think that's a problem. So to me, I at least try to stay on top of what's going on for that day so that I have room to deal with the stuff that doesn't. So, yes. Talk to him.
Mike, you mentioned the story. It took some time when you were developing the private label
Yes.
product for Walmart. What do you think actually made the sale happen?
Well, to be honest with you, I think it was really, they didn't have a private label breakfast sausage at the time, and they were now beginning, I think, to understand the power of private label. The private label brands today, and if you did a blind cutting, there really is very little difference, and I think they realized that. So when they wanted, they had a quality supplier from McDonald's standpoint, and B, they had the strategic intent to get into private label in a quality way, not in a crappy way. So the two just married up. It took some doing, though, but we cut against every national brand imaginable, and it was a difficult process to go through, but we still won out. There's a gentleman way back there. Okay. Thank you. Mm-hmm. That's an excellent question. Excellent. I will tell you this. I'll address the second one first. We already are on equal and on par. We don't, it used to be diversity companies came with, it's going to be more expensive. They don't have their act together, but just bear with them. We don't play that. In food and meat, my first quality at my company is food safety, because we're representing all these brands. I mean, could you imagine a recall on bacon at McDonald's? They don't think about McDonald's. They don't think about Fair Oaks. They're like, it's McDonald's, right? You know how detrimental that would be? I mean, it's just a disaster. So we are outstanding on food safety. Quality. The nice thing about joining at a McDonald's level and my training on the McDonald's side is I knew that going in. So the company that I bought, even though they were having a lot of problems, they had some basics that that were good, and one of those basics was food safety and quality. And so we've never really had that issue. I will tell you where I've had that issue, and that is going into other companies, that I won't mention here, but them going, just giving you fill out the application, go to our website, do this, do that, and they never really give you any serious attention. So we fight that every day, but I will tell you, I would say in the food industry at least, I think we've crossed that mark. And then on your second question, So, you know, we're 340, 50 million. You know, I don't know it's about getting to $1 billion. I think it was well said this morning that it really is about